for your presentation on sustainable, resilient game plan, Australian perspective. Please welcome Dr. Sidsel.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm very happy to have received your invitation. Thank you to the Cooperative Institute of Malaysia and to Maud Roslan Bani Amin. I was very happy and flattered to be invited to this seminar. And also thank you to Director Sarina for her help in setting this up for me. Okay, so my name is Sidsel Grimstad, and as your introduction said, I've been at the business school for the last 14 years. I'm originally from Norway, and Norway in Scandinavia, that is a region full of cooperatives. So I have a strong cooperative background from that country before I came to Australia.
It's in your blood. It's in
Sorry?
your blood. It's in your blood.
In my blood. It's in my blood, yes. And I was asked today to talk about the importance of strategic planning and the process of reviewing the plan, reviewing the strategic plan in relation to COVID. So I will talk about this in relation to a cooperative business. So I won't. And I've been so enjoying the previous speakers' input, because it's all very, while Azrin was talking about the resilience in the travel agents, the cooperative travel agency, I thought that was a very, very interesting example of the agility of a co-op structure. And Sharina, you went more into how communities as a whole also have to relate to COVID, but also, what should I say, use strategic planning in trying to help both communities and the park management, I guess, to develop resilience in that aspect. So my presentation today I will talk first about relationship between strategy, risk and resilience. And then I'll go a little bit into the Australian co-op sector, which is tiny compared to Malaysia and Norway. But we'll still talk about that. I'll talk a little bit about the Australian government's response and also how the co-op sector has responded, and give some examples of what I see as the cooperative advantage. So I first wanted to talk about the definition of risk, because let me just check. I hope you give me some time. You give me a note if I'm talking over time. Yeah. So first I'll talk about definition of risk. So according to ISO 31000, risk is the effect of uncertainty on your objectives, on the goals that you want to achieve. So if you are a business or an organization, you might need to sit down and think about, okay, what are the risks that we know about for reaching our objectives? They are the ones that are very easy to rate and rank. For instance, I've said the impact of online shopping site being down due to error or lack of maintenance. We know that this will happen from time to time. It's not a surprise. How do you deal with that? Then we have the second type of risk, which is the known unknowns. So those are the risks that you kind of know about, but you don't know how they will manifest in your business or in your organization. We can talk about regular weather. We know that there are weather fluctuations, for instance, and that will affect farmers, but we don't know how big those fluctuations will appear. And especially now with climate change, that has become almost an unknown. And that's the next type of risk, it's the unknown unknown. So these are the risks that we actually can't foresee. And I think for all of us, COVID-19 has been one of those unknown unknowns, because we did not, I think in November last year, none of us could foresee that where we are today. So when we talk about risk, it's important to kind of categorize what we know and what we don't know, and see if there's any way we can kind of adapt or mitigate those risks. So one way of doing this is to have what we call a risk assessment. You make a risk assessment. You talk about the consequence of a risk and the likelihood of a risk. So if you can if you assess different types of risk, and to the left of your screen, you will see there's a whole list of different types of risk, and many of them are non-financial risks. So there's one financial risks, of course. If your business is suffering financially and you are not able to continue, that's a financial risk, and it's kind of obvious that you're not selling your products and so on, your business is suffering. But there are other kind of indirect risks that you also have to be aware of. Of course, the market risk, if the market changes, and a very good example of that is from the travel agency. Your market, your outbound market, your overseas travel stopped, as it has done in all countries. But so that's a risk, definite big market risk, and you have to then find kind of what's the consequence? The consequence, I don't know how big a percentage of your business that was, but you can talk about, was it moderate, major, or catastrophic consequence of that outbound travel was stopped, or was it maybe moderate? It seems like you have a lot of domestic travel, so maybe it wasn't the main part of your business. Then the likelihood of risk, and that's where we go back to, is it a known risk, is it an unknown risk, and is it unknown? Like COVID-19, I think nobody could have seen that was coming. We have operational risk. Again, I thought the example from the travel agency was really a nice example of seeing how you were able to change your staff to other tasks when you were changing your business model. Yeah, your drivers and so on, you put them into sales and marketing in order to try to keep your business running. I thought that's an operational risk. Regulatory risk, of course, with COVID, we have huge number of restrictions in how we run our day-to-day business, run our day-to-day organizations. We had the social distancing, we have online only. So these are big changes in the way a business operates. And so this is an example of regulatory risk. So I should have said that in the beginning. So the asterisks and red types of risk are, in my opinion, very much related to COVID-19, or particularly related to COVID-19 in this time. Project risk is if you have a particular project that could also, of course, be related to COVID-19, but maybe that's of a lesser importance. Environmental risk. We didn't know 6 months ago that we would all be wearing face masks, and we needed sanitizers, that were of a certain quality and were not poisonous to people, and so on. So there are huge environmental risks related to COVID as well, that a business has to relate to and try to mitigate. Technology risk, again, this is about your business going online? Do you have the appropriate technology? Do you have staff that are able to accommodate meeting and doing, what should I say, continuing business as normal, but using online technology only? So this is a technology risk. Business model disruption risk, it is related to what happens to a business when you can no longer meet face-to-face or do your business face-to-face. That's a difference in the business model. Maybe you have to invest more in technology upgrades, online technology. Maybe you have to train your staff to be able to use technology more efficiently, because in order to get up to speed in the online business environment. Supplier risk, again, the same thing. Suppliers would be faced with the same problem as you are. So again, it can be technology, business model, environmental risk, and so on, and operational risk. Organizational risks, again, I think the example from the Cooperative Travel Agency was a really good one, because it talks about how you are able to quite in an agile way, it seemed like, maybe it didn't feel like that in the time, but it seemed like you were able to change the way you used staff. And you said you had not actually had to, none of your staff had to leave the business, which I think is a tremendous success, because we see so many businesses where staff have had to leave, and which leaves them in a terrible situation. So this is, I think this is a good framework to try to look at your own business or your own co-op, on where are the risks, and what is the likelihood of a risk, and what's the consequence of a risk. And it's a good time to look at risk assessment, because I mean, and it's a good time to reflect on risk and assessing risk in a cooperative, because all businesses, whether they are cooperative or corporate, have had to relate to COVID. But it is how you have managed to respond to COVID that will gives you really a lot of time, a lot of input into a reflective process of how did we respond, where were our problems, and how can we respond better going forward. I wanted to just keep this in mind, because our peak body, the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals in Australia, just this year released a strategy and corporate governance principles for cooperatives and mutuals enterprises. And the one thing that is really important is that the business strategy for a cooperative is a description of how the organization intends to create value for its members and its stakeholders. And I think that is really, really important, because that is the one thing that is different to a corporation. You don't have to think first and foremost on making maximum profit or maximum shareholder value. You actually have to think first and foremost on how do you create value for your members and your stakeholders or your community. So I think it is a good reminder also when you are now reflecting on how your organization, your co-op, your community organization has responded so far to COVID. What can we learn from it, and how are we able to go forward, while always making sure that we create, protect, and return member value. I think this is really important. So if we look at what a cooperative and mutual enterprise strategy, or we can see that there's a kind of a certain strategic planning cycle that is Normally, we see a strategic plan being made every 3 to 5 years. It starts with collecting data, analysis, evaluate what's happened. You include a risk assessment, probability and severity in that phase where you are analyzing and evaluating. And then you make a plan with your values, your missions, and measurable KPIs. Then the next step is to implement your plan, of course, and then after you have implemented this plan in 3 to 5 years, you review and reflect and see where you were successful and where you were less successful. Now, of course, COVID kind of disrupts this whole very structured and regular planning cycle, because it fell down on the whole world, and it needs to be, so your strategic plans would probably need to be revisited. It disrupted most businesses, most livelihoods. But as I said, it is also a good time to review and reflect on what you did well and where you can improve, and what are the essential steps you need to take to improve your co-op. But the way I see it is that the cooperative business model has several advantages. As I said before, it's a not profit-only focus, so you have to make sure that it is member-focused. You create value for your members and the community and stakeholders that your members are from. It's a network business model. Through it is a cooperative advantage that makes it more agile. Cooperation with other stakeholders and other cooperatives make you strong and more agile. You can make quick decisions to protect your business members and community. And the last thing is that it is very embedded and focused on community, which will lead to better environmental and social solutions. I'll get back to a few examples later from the Australian context. So in Australia, I just wanted to mention very briefly that we are, as I say, a small cooperative country. Only 2,000 active cooperative mutuals in Australia. The largest sectors are agriculture and also insurance and finance areas. And the cooperative sector employs at least 61,000 people in Australia, but they have a lot bigger indirect impact. The Australian government and its COVID response I would say, has been very fast, has been quick and substantial. It has led to lockdown and closing of national borders, and between states and even between regions. I don't know if you're aware, but Victoria has had a very severe lockdown for almost 3 months. The federal government has kept incoming flights Australia is a country that has a very high rate of immigration, and this year we have had the lowest immigration into Australia in 40 years. So, and of course, we have a very strong university sector, which has been hit very hard with no international students arriving. We have had rental support, we have had job seeker and job keeper support for people looking for or have been in employment. So that has been good responses from the government. And we have had a low number of fatalities, only less than 1,000 deaths. But one thing that COVID has revealed to Australia is that because we are a very export-oriented economy, it has revealed that there is an extreme dependency on supply of products from overseas, and also that the domestic manufacturing and supply chains are very weak. So when the borders close, like we have experienced, there's huge problems in getting hold of necessary supplies, also within the health sector. So we have just received a COVID recovery budget, the national COVID recovery budget, which was presented last week. And one of their biggest focus is to strengthen domestic manufacturing sector in food and beverages, medical products, recycling, clean energy, defense, and space areas. With regards to what the co-op sector is doing, a lot of initiative, a lot of work has been done by our peak body, the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals. They have embarked on a large co-op education program for the agricultural sector or the rural sector, which is running now in this year and next year. And they are continuous feeding, providing small short courses for business entrepreneurs that want to establish cooperatives. Another thing that happened all through the most intense phase of the COVID impact here in Australia, while most states were in lockdown, was that there were daily or weekly bulletins with interviews of how co-ops were managing. And I think this was really important because it gave a lot of ideas on how a co-op, what were the problems, how did we respond, what were the most important issues for us, how did we take care of our staff, how did we make sure that our business could survive. And I think those interviews with co-op leaders and managers was a really important input into keeping resilience in the sector. Sorry, is there any? But what is coming up now, and this is not completely finished yet, but the BCCM has developed a plan that focuses on cooperative-led recovery to scale local manufacturing businesses and create high-quality jobs in regional centers. So I think the co-op sector sees themselves as providing a very important solution to this issue of a very weak manufacturing and supply chain area in the Australian economy. And it is because of what I would call the cooperative advantage that I see that the cooperative model can be attractive to the government, and that they will want to support developing, for instance, cooperative clusters that will work together to deliver jobs and growth, especially in the agricultural and rural areas. And there are many examples of what I call enterprise cooperatives in Australia, and they have been very successful over many years. Here I will mention Rapid Clean and HunterNet. Both of those two co-ops are what I call enterprise co-ops. So they are a co-op, in a way, an umbrella co-op that supports a large number of small businesses. So Rapid Clean is a co-op of small cleaning agencies. These can be family-owned or corporate or small incorporated businesses. They don't have to be co-ops themselves, but they are members of Rapid Clean, and they have been very successful over several decades. But one thing I was very impressed by, one of the early interviews with the CEO of Rapid Clean, Bruce Lee. He said that when COVID hit, the demand for sanitizers and cleaning products was enormous. And he said, you know, we were so happy to start with because we saw, we've got this opportunity now to sell everything, all our stock, everything we have, and provide products that's needed in the community. But he said, I quickly realized that we couldn't just keep on, what should I say, giving. We had to protect our staff and our members too. So after the first crazy couple of weeks, they actually shut down some of their outlets so that they could sit down, reflect, and say, how do we actually deal with this in a way that we don't, that people don't, what should I say, so that they can continue to deliver this in a sustainable way, continue to deliver services and products in a sustainable way. So I was very impressed by the way a co-op can say, yes, we can make a lot of profit here very quickly, but we would rather see that we can have a sustainable business over time. We have a long-term view, and we want to not overburden our members in that situation. We want them to help them so that they can reorient themselves and deliver for the sustainable service and products. So I think that was an example of being focused on their staff and their members, protecting their staff and members, and not only looking at profit. I think that was important, and they are now a very active member of trying to support in this new manufacturing strategy. The second enterprise co-op is the Hunternet co-op, which is here in the region. It supports a network of more than 150 small businesses, small companies, and employs around 70,000 employees, mostly regional, but also nationally. And they support their business through training, admin support, and support for globalization. And one of the things they have, so they network their small businesses all the time so that they learn from each other. And they help small businesses collaborate if there's a contract they want to tender for, and so on. So they are incredibly important to as a support for small businesses in this region. When COVID hit, they said, how are we going to do this? Our whole business model is related to meeting face-to-face and having those small chats. They managed to set up a new conference internet-based tool where you can you can go in and both have conversations between people on the platform, and also view presentations. So it's it feels like you are in a room together, but you can go out, you can go and meet somebody and have a conversation one-on-one, and then you can come back and look at the presentation. So and they use kind of avatars, so your picture is there, your photo is there, so you go and meet other people. So this was one of their responses, a technology-based response to how they can manage in the online environment and trying to maintain this extremely important networking and social capital building that this whole co-op is built on, really. A couple of other examples. Mountain Mill Co-op is a small new dairy co-op that was established just last year, basically, and they have been trying to develop new products, new outlets for their milk, but of course, and particularly delivering milk to particular cafes and so on. But during COVID, the whole hospitality industry shut down. They had to really rethink what they were, what their business strategy should be then, and went back to the local environment and have now gone into ice cream production instead. So it is interesting that well, they almost started working to supplying Melbourne and the big cities with milk. They had to kind of go local and find another way to experiment with new products, even under COVID. The last example is the Geraldton Fishermen's Co-op. They are known because, especially in Asia, or especially in China, I guess, with 98% of their lobsters, very famous lobsters, go to the Chinese market. And of course, lobsters has to be fresh. They are airborne to China, and all of this stopped very suddenly with COVID. Through the BCCM and lobbying and so on, they were able to eventually negotiate specific transport operations going to China so that they were able to transport their products over there. But it was also it wasn't only for them, it was for the whole co-op, fishermen's co-op sector. So through collaboration, they were able to lobby for getting government support for transport opportunities to sell their products. So otherwise, a lot of the fishermen would be without work, of course, because that was their main market. But it was because they collaborated with other co-ops. And I think, so this again shows the strength of collaboration across co-ops or between co-ops and collaboration with other stakeholders also in the time of COVID. So I think the Australian cooperatives have shown resilience. So the focus on member value, both economically and socially, is really important. A co-op is agile when it can allow itself to not only think about profit, I think. Being small can be a problem, but it can also be become a benefit and an agility, because you can more easily change strategic plans. You are more agile in that sense. The cooperative advantage through networks of small businesses, I cannot say strengthen my argument for this type of models enough, because I see it's strange that in a country like Australia, which has a very small cooperative sector, the most successful are these enterprise co-ops that help small businesses work in their own environment, but can offer training, education, network support, contacts, and just and even admin support. Then they become very agile cooperatives that can help not only the cooperative itself, but all the small businesses that are their members. Focus on education, training, and administrative support. In a COVID situation, having time to stop and reflect and say, where do we actually need to strengthen our focus now in order to be able to redirect our business to online, to technology-based solutions and so on. I think that is really important, and we all have to learn. I think it's part of her reflection, I think, is to have also a lot of humility, that we all have a lot to learn. Nobody has the answers, and I think if you are humble in your approach to reflection, I think you can come up with some very good solutions. Cooperation among cooperatives, super important for resilience. And then the last example, cooperation with other cooperatives, for cooperatives through lobbying government. I think a strong cooperative sector, but a strong but showing that you are not only one co-op, but you are many co-ops behind a suggestion to government, I think strengthens the argument, and also, I guess, shows the government that the cooperative sector have good solutions in this kind of crisis that we are, or we have, and we are still in. So I think the future is cooperative, and I would like to say thank you.